There's more to cleaning out a fan than just blowing out dust if you want it to last them more than a couple of years. And I'll show you how you got to actually clean the motor out. Real easy to do. Only takes a couple minutes. And they're going to say when you buy these, especially if you buy a cheap one like this, it's, maybe $10, whatever, they're going to say it's maintenance free. Well, it's maintenance free because they want you to buy one every couple of years. But if you clean the motor out, it's going to last longer. Also, because there's not so much crud inside the motor, it's going to spin faster, just like it was brand new. It's also going to use less energy. So there's a lot of benefits to doing this. So what you do is you pull this out. Some of these have little lock nuts, or they have a retaining bolt or something on top here. This one's plastic and cheap, so you just wiggle it back and forth until it comes out. Now, I just cleaned this out. This is the second time I've shot this. The first time the audio was terrible, so I'm doing this again. So this is actually going to be very clean. But there's usually a few bolts, or I'm sorry, a few screws around the outside. Unscrew these. There's one right here. Takes this off. Don't want to use that screw. Alright, so once you have all these off, you just lift it straight up. And there's one bearing. Here's the rotor. Now this is a brushless motor, so it's just real easy to work on. This is not a brushed motor. Brushed motors are a little more complicated because you have to hold the brushes back when you put the rotor back in, but this is brushless, so it's very easy. Pull this out, and there's the second bearing. Now, if you take the back grill off, you can take this whole piece out. I'm not going to do that. So what you're going to need is some rubbing alcohol, some paper towels. You can use a Q-tip, but when you use a Q-tip, make sure that you get rid of all the cotton fibers, because that will eat up the bearing once you put it all back together, believe it or not. And all you do is put that through there and spin it around. And this, like I said, this is going to be clean because I just got done cleaning this. I did this the other night. But you clean this until it's, you clean it until it's clean. If you pull this out and there's a lot of gunk on there, use another part of the paper towel, do it again. And I'm going to clean it out because I'm going to put all new oil on it. Now, as far as oil is concerned, easiest thing, the best thing to use I found is 3-in-1 oil. Just basic 3-in-1. You can use really any kind of oil, but 3-in-1 works the best. Don't use WD-40. WD-40 is not going to work very well for this over the long term. It attracts a lot of dust and dirt. And it will not stay against the bearing surface. It'll actually evaporate, and whatever's left over will bleed away. So now that the bearings are clean, yours will probably take longer because yours won't be clean. Clean the rotor off. Same idea. Rag. Clean the two shaft surfaces. There's usually a couple washers here to make sure you get all the oil and gunk off of them, because that's what it's going to be resting on. Alright, and now that you've done that. And obviously, before you do any of this, and I should have mentioned this before, take some compressed air or an air compressor, whatever you have, vacuum cleaner, blow out all the dust that is going to be in these grills. Also in here, within these coils, get it all clean before you clean the bearings out, because then you're going to be doing doing the work twice. All right. So now we start putting it back together. Now, as far as oil, don't soak it in oil. The reason you don't want to soak it in oil is it'll drip out, and you'll have oil all over the place. And the worst case scenario, it drips out, hits the blade, then it starts shooting oil into your room. You don't want that. The other thing is oil attracts, or it's going to capture dust and dirt, and you don't want that either. So just put a drop on there, spin it around just so that it gets all over the shaft, and then just drop it back in place. Spin it around so that it's nice and covered. And then this one, you do the same thing. Just put a drop of oil inside. I like to spin it around so that I can see that the whole surface is covered. Now, depending on your fan, depending on the motor, you're going to have cutouts. You got to make sure that the wires actually fit. So make sure it lines up. And when you put it back on, any of the oil that came off, wash that off. Put the screws back in. Now you're not done yet. Make sure it snaps down into place. I shouldn't say snap, it kind of locks down into place. Make sure it fits into its groove. Now, if this, for whatever reason, doesn't spin freely, make sure no wires are touching it, or that this is on straight. But sometimes these bearings move within that housing, and they're designed to do that. So the bearing may be moved, to the side, and it may be rubbing against the shaft. What you can do is, this is all screwed down, move the bearing around, and you're not gonna really feel it move, but just push around, and that'll center it, and it should spin freely. What you can also do, if you want, don't use a lot. I know I said not to use a lot. Because you slid this down, it did pull some of the oil away from the bearing surface. You don't really have to do this. This is not a gasoline engine or anything, so it's not creating a lot of heat. But if you want to put a couple dabs, it'll bleed down in there. It's not going to hurt anything. Like I said, don't soak it, just a drop. Alright, and then as far as the motor, that's all there is to it. Put the blade back on. You'll notice this is keyed. There's a little flat side to it. On here there's also a flat side. You want to line that up. Make sure it spins freely. Put the top back on, or put the grill back on. Now, I actually did another fan that had, it was a window fan, that had 3 individual fans in it. And I did maintenance on 2 of them, and then the last fan, or the last, I should say, I did maintenance on 2 of the motors, and then the last motor I hadn't done any maintenance on it yet. And I spun one of the, the maintained motors, and I spun the one of the untouched ones at the same time. And the maintained motor, the one that I just got done cleaning out, continued to spin while the other one stopped. So you can tell there was far less friction on the motors that were cleaned out. And mind you, it was in a window and it was operating fine. At least that motor was. Another one was frozen. And that's why I took it apart originally, to fix the broken motor. And I'm missing 1 screw. One time there it is. I was going to say, one time I don't use a magnet to hold my screws, but there it is. Alright, let's plug it in, just to make sure. And again, I don't think I said this in the beginning, but you want to make sure you have this unplugged before you do anything. There you go. So, if you're doing this without explaining this if you're doing this without showing someone how to do it, it can take you under 10 minutes. And I would recommend you do this to your fans every year. They'll last much, much longer instead of having to buy them every year. Plus, like I said, they will work much better, they'll blow more air, and most likely use less electricity. So you're benefiting. For 10 minutes of your time, you really can't go wrong. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll do everything I can, or I'll do my best to answer them. And I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found this helpful. Thank you very much.